Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're back. We're doing another Proving Grounds practice walkthrough. This time we're doing a machine called Hutch. It is a Windows machine rated as intermediate. Um, I thought it was pretty hard. It took me a while, but then again, Windows is not my strong suit. But without further ado, you can see I am on Offsec VPN, and you can see I have the Hutch machine spun up. So the first thing that we did was we ran an mmap scan. Now, Hutch is a domain controller, so there's a lot going on here. Um, some things of note, there is something running on 80. It looks like WinRM is enabled, and there's some, other additional ports on here, but most of them are pretty indicative of what you would see on a domain controller. So typically when you do these machines, the first thing you want to do is find out the domain, which looks like hutch.offsec. And then we also have the host name for the domain controller, which looks like hutchdc. So really the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the host file. I'm going to put an entry in for both of those. So if we come down to the bottom, we can grab our IP address of the machine, paste it in there, click tab, and then we'll just take one quick look at the scan here, and we'll copy this hutch.offsec, copy, paste, and then we'll hit space, and then we'll also put in the DC name, which is going to be Hutch DC. Where is that? Right here. Copy. Paste clipboard. All right, so we're going to hit Control O to save, Control X to exit. Here's where I struggled. I used my typical go-to tools like enum for Linux. I also did some Kabroot. There was no guest account. There was only an administrator and an admin account. And I tried to do an RID brute with NXC using the admin account with no password, and none of that was working. So I had to go to the trusty tool that I go to when I don't know what to do, and that was Google. So I said, how do I query LDAP with and I don't know why it's misspelled here, but they got what I meant. How do I query LDAP with ldapsearch? And there's a really good explanation here with most of the flags and even an example. So using this, if you look, you're doing an LDAP search. This is localhost. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be sending it a URL. You don't have to worry about the port. This B is the query to LDAP. So you have your DC example, DC-com. For us, it would be Hutch would be here, and then this would be Offsec. And then object class means query everything. So with that in mind, what I did was open a terminal, and then I have the ldapsearch command that I put together for this, which is pretty similar to the one that is on the Google page, with a few exceptions. This X means simple authentication, and then this H is uppercase, which means we're sending it this URL or a URI or whatever you want to call this. I don't know what they call this when it's LDAP. And then, as I said, we have DC Hutch and DC Offsec, and we want to see everything. So when we hit enter, we get a lot back. Now, I went through everything, but what you really want is right at the end. Somebody actually has a comment in the description here that says, for this user, Freddie McSorley, his password had been set to this, crab shark jellyfish 192. So we have a username, and we now have a password. Okay. What to do with that? We don't know just quite yet, because I tried to evil WinRM to the machine. Obviously, it's a low-level user account, so it didn't work. So I decided that when I looked at this nmap scan and I looked at 80, it said WebDAV type unknown. It didn't really say that WebDAV was enabled. So what I decided to do was just open MSF console and then do a search on WebDAV. Now we're not going to use the Metasploit framework to do any exploitation. I'm just going to use one of the auxiliary scanning modules, which is this one right here. And this scans to ensure or let you know if WebDAV is in fact running on this machine. So we're going to do use, and we're going to paste in that module. We're going to hit enter, and then we're going to type options. We're going to set our hosts to the IP address 192.168.224.122. And then we're just going to hit run. And it does in fact have WebDAV enabled. So we're going to get out of here. And there's a tool in Kali Linux called Cadaver, which is like a command line tool to interact with WebDAV. Now, before we do anything there, I went to the web server. It's just the IIS page. There wasn't a lot going on. I tried to do some go busting as well, and the only thing that came back was this ASP.NET_client. I tried to go there. It was no good. So really, I felt like my next only alternative at this point was maybe to see if I could leverage WebDAV with the credentials that I have. So Cadaver is actually really simple. Let me close that one. I think I have a clean one open here. Yep. So you just type Cadaver, and then I just used the fully qualified Hutch.offsec in there. And what happens when you do that is you get a username. So the username was fmcsorlee. And then the password is that password that was in the description when we did the LDAP query. And then we hit enter. And we have a prompt. So I just typed help, and it gives you all of the commands that are available. So if we do an ls, that to me looks like the base of the web server, the base directory of the web server. So I immediately said, well, let's try and upload a web shell of some sort and see if we can get a reverse shell that way. So what I did was I really don't like the aspx web shell they give you in Kali. So I went out and I found this one. It's in BoreJMZ's GitHub, and it worked very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to download this file. We're going to open up our folder, go to downloads, and we have the shell right here. Open it in mousepad, and it looks like we have to change a couple of things. Looks like we have to change this to our IP address. So that's going to be 192.168.45.159. My IP address has changed. I was used to the 214. Now I got 19159. So I have to always check and make sure that I got the right IP address. I'm going to leave the port just as it is, and I'm going to click save. Now, what I think I'm going to do here is we're going to go back to the shell that we have. And I believe it works like FTP here. We can put stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do put, and I think you have to do the fully qualified domain, the literal path, not the relative path. So it would be home, Kali, downloads, and I believe it's shell.aspx, and hopefully it will put it there. So let's do an ls, and now we have shell.aspx up there. So theoretically, what we should be able to do is start a netcat listener on 1, 2, 3, 4, and then hopefully if we come to this and we do shell aspx, or actually if we spell it right, aspx. Hopefully this will stall out. I can't remember if I had to put any other directories in there. I don't think I did. So let's hit enter. And that, my friends, is a good sign. So if we go to our listener, we do have a shell. So I believe if I do who am I priv, looks like we have the impersonate privilege, which could be a possibility. But I don't see anything else. And if I just type who am I, I'm IIS Apple default Apple. So I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do here, but let's see. CD, C, and then we'll do dir. And there's some stuff here. It looks like there's the base of the website. Let's go to users, do a dir. And it looks like we got F. McSorley, domain admin, administrator, public. Let's see if we can get into F. McSorley. And if we do a dir, we can see so far so good. So let's go into desktop and we'll do a type user.txt. This is, let me just make sure I get confused. It's local. Okay, so type local.txt. That's the danger when you switch back and forth between Hack the Box and Offsec. All right, so we have the user flag, so we're in good shape. Now, the only thing that I could figure to do here, I did a lot of poking around, and I wasn't able to see too much, but let's see. CDC. We'll do a dir. All right, and let's go into, let's look in program files. Actually, let me put some quotes around that. Do a dir. And it looks like laps is installed. So let's go into cd laps dir. And it looks like Laps is installed on this computer. For those of you who don't know, Laps is Microsoft's local administrator password, whatever. And basically you have to request an admin password and it gives you like a random password. And typically they're rotated on a regular basis, like 24 hours or so. So my next thought was to try and get the Laps password, because that's an administrator password. Now I tried using PowerShell. I think it's get AD Laps PWD or whatever, but it's not on this computer. What I could have probably done was maybe downloaded PowerView or something like that, or PowerUp, and gotten the ability to do that. But what I decided to do was I did some searching on, and I think you can do this with ldapsearch, but I couldn't get it to work. I'm almost 100% that you could do it with ldapsearch as well. I went to the webs and I found this guy. I've used his exploits before and they always work well. And it's a script which basically you run on your local machine that will query and request the Laps password in plain text. So what we're going to do is, there's some requirements for this. So what we'll do is hit the code button, copy, and then we'll come to our folder. We'll just go to our home directory and we'll do open a terminal here, and then we'll git clone this library, paste. All right, so now we know we need to do a Python virtual environment because there's a lot of requests. There's a lot of modules that are in the requirements.txt. So what we do is Python 3 module is venv. .venv is the name of the environment. And then we'll do .venv bin pip install requirements.txt. That was a dumb move. So when you git clone a library, it puts it in another folder. So we need to go into PyLapse. Then we can install, and I actually screwed up. We have to create our Python virtual environment in here. So I'll just hit enter again to create it in that folder. And then we'll install requirements.txt. So sorry about that. I forgot when you git clone a library, it puts it into its own directory. So that's why we had to redo everything. I had to go into that directory, create the Python virtual environment in there, and then install the requirements.txt. Now, let's go take a look at the code. Let's see, PyLapse. This guy writes really good code. I've used his exploits multiple times, and they're very well written and work extremely well. So there's a lot going on here. Kudos to this guy for figuring this out and writing this. Now, what I would say is this. We have to look at the instructions because there is a lot of arguments and stuff that you need to do here. So let's go back and take a look. Let's take a look in his GitHub. All right, PyLapse. All right, so to read all the passwords of all computers, to read the password of a specific computer, I believe this one will work. Let me see. Administrator. I believe this is the one that I used. Yeah. So let's go back and we'll explain all of this when we run it. So if we go back to our folder here, we'll open a terminal here, and then here's the command that you have to run, and I'll explain it. So we're running the PyLapse program in our virtual Python environment. The action is get, and the user is fmcsorley, and the domain is hutch.offsec, and the password is the password, and then the DCIP that's the DCIP. So when we hit enter, we should potentially get the lapse password in plain text, and it'll look insane because the lapse passwords are just random characters, letters, and numbers. So let's hit enter and see what happens. And we got it. So it looks like this is the lapse password for that machine. So now that we have the lapse password, we should be able to log in. If you remember, evil winrm is an option here because 5985, if we go back and we look at our nmap scan, 5985 is in play here. So let's give it a whirl and see what happens. So we do evil winrm administrator, and I got to change what I have in here for the lapse password. So copy, paste, and then we have to update the IP because this remembers it from the last time I did this machine. This is now 224. And fingers crossed, we should get an administrator shell. So we'll see. And we do. So look at that. And if we do who am I, we're a Hutch administrator. So now we can back up a directory, go into CD desktop. We can do a dir, and I will make sure I blur this out, of course. Type proof.txt, and there's the administrator flag. So this machine, although I got through it very quickly here in under 20 minutes, was very difficult for me because I had never used ldapsearch. Obviously, I had to do a little tweaking to get that Google example to work. And I don't have a lot of experience with taking advantage of lapse. So I do a lot of research on that, and I probably spent a good 30 to 45 minutes trying to get it with PowerShell, trying to use ldapsearch. I could just not get the ldapsearch string command with the right arguments to work. I guarantee you could probably do it with ldapsearch, but I just kind of lost patience, and I found this Pylapse from in that GitHub library of the guy who just writes great exploits. They always work, and it did work like a charm. So what we did to exploit this machine was we ran an mmap scan. It's a domain controller. There was a lot going on, so we added the domain and the host name to the hosts file. We did some go busting. That didn't yield any fruit. So what I started to do after enum for Linux didn't work, Kabroot didn't really give me what I needed, and I even tried NXC to do a RID brute. That didn't work. ldapsearch was able to dump all the users. One of the users had a password in the description. We were able to use the MSF console to scan to make sure that WebDAV was installed on the machine. Once we did that, we used Cadaver to log into WebDAV with the credentials that we obtained. We uploaded an aspx reverse shell. We were able to use that to gain a reverse shell as a low-level user. As I poked around, and believe me, I went right to the point here, but in real life it took me an hour of poking around. I even ran WinPs, and that also, to its credit, did tell me that Lapse was enabled. Figured out how to exploit Lapse by requesting the admin password. We used a Python script exploit to do that, to get the password in plain text, and then we used EvilWinRM to log into the machine. So I hope you found this video useful. I hope you learned something. All the links will be in the description below. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, please drop them below. I'll be happy to talk with you. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.